Ain't it just grand on the eve of Independence Day that you can so proudly say that our president is both declining and a malignant narcissist, and the vice president has the emotional maturity of a 14-year-old in junior high? And yes, I'm speaking of JD Vance in this breaking story, and you're going to want to see what he just decided to proudly put out to the world on a social platform. I'm going to show that to you in just a few seconds. Let's be reminded that this is the guy, Mr. Hillbilly Effigy, whoopsie poop. This is who JD Vance really is.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
And this is us watching him in real time begin to turn himself inside out and shed that skin.
In 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. And you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. You also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, "Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. Why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear?"
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump.
And if you want to hearken back to that moment when he pushed Volodymyr Zelensky as to why he never said thank you in that recent meeting in the Oval Office, be reminded that comes from the guy who actually said this about Ukraine.
Country. And I think it's ridiculous that we're focused on this border in Ukraine. I got to be honest with you, I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another.
And yes, our wonderful hillbilly effigy vice president actually just said this regarding the results and the outcome of what this Trump's big beautiful bill will actually do to the American people.
Here's what's happening in the House. We are being called back to Washington to vote on the big ugly bill. But I don't know if you saw what the Vice President of the United States said about this bill. He called its impacts on the American people immaterial. Immaterial.
And so it should come as no shock that one of the very places that is going to be a victim of this bill from Vance's own hometown.
It's particularly shameful that Vice President Vance said that. He claims to have roots in Kentucky, to be from Breathitt County. Well, guess what? The Breathitt County Hospital there in Jackson is on the list of hospitals that will close. It will be his family that he talks about who's impacted by that.
So in this breaking story, when you take a look at who JD Vance really is, how his brain functions, and the constant complaint that men never grow up, well, here you go. How about reveling so much in a text that he got, a personal text from a GOP congressman, something no one would know about, that JD Vance has so little soul that he's willing to take that text and what it says and put it out to the world. Take a look at what Vance just did. Breaking news. Vice President JD Vance shares text with GOP congressman who says, in quotes, "I was undecided on the bill, but then I watched Hakeem Jeffries' performance, and now I'm a firm yes." And that explains the GOP so much. It's not about policy. It's not about results. It's not about damage, triage, or the tsunami of hell that if this bill passes, it will do not only to our national debt, but also millions of Americans who have not necessarily done anything wrong whatsoever. It's only about buds backslapping and laughing at how funny it must be to simply oppose for the sake of opposing. If I were to say that is just so high school, I would be being kind. No, that's just so middle school. That's having the emotional intelligence of a 10-year-old. That's what that is. And unfortunately, that is so much of where the Billionaire Boys Club lives. That is so much of what happens on Wall Street with a bunch of billionaires basically just playing fantasy football with their power and their cash and its result on 98% of Americans. You guys do the best you can to enjoy your 4th of July holiday weekend, but stay frosty.